This is Willie Jones, President of Women for Progress, and you've tuned into the end of the year edition of Women for Progress Radio. We're very, very excited to be sitting down at the end of each year, Women for Progress Radio. We have this dialogue, roundtable discussion about the previous year, how the issues impact our cities, our communities, and our state. And so I'm very, very excited to have our panel with us today. Ms. Juanita Brown, our executive producer. Let's give her applause for work that she's done this year. She has put together another roundtable that I'm extremely excited about. Ms. Dr. Ira Phillips and Teresa Kennedy, I think, are en route, so we'll wait on them. But we have with us Ms. Flunzy Brown Wright, who was the first African-American woman to hold public office in the state of Mississippi. She's a former investigator with EEOC. She's an author and community activist and a trailblazer in her own right. So welcome to the program, Ms. Brown Wright.
Thank you.
We have also with us Ms. Attorney Regina Quinn. Ms. Quinn has over 30 years of legal and business experience prior to running for mayor of the city of Jackson. Attorney Quinn served as Special Assistant Attorney General representing the Department of Finance and Administration. Attorney Quinn served as Jackson State University's first General Counsel for 11 years and was JSU's key negotiator in JSU's acquisition of Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium. And she's also a partner in the May Law Firm. Welcome to the program,
Thank
Regina.
you so very much. It's great to be here.
Okay. And then we have also Ms. Erica Collins-Young, and she works with the RAND Corporation. She's also the co-host of Women for Progress Radio Youth Edition. Welcome to the program, Ms. Young.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. And we have Ms. Renee Shakespeare. She's the co-host of the Evers Hour on WMPR, and she's a longtime community activist and a friend of Women for Progress. So welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we have Ms. E.J. Russell, who has such vast experience. She's an attorney, entrepreneur, community activist, mother, and all of those other great things, and she's a great activist with Women for Progress. Welcome to the program, EJ.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Also a co-host with Women for Progress Radio, so we're proud to have you here with us. And I think we have Ms. Teresa Kennedy, who's about to sit in with us. She's a principal at 5520 PR and marketing firm involved in entrepreneurship, agriculture banking for farmers, small business consulting, marketing, and community outreach, among her other pursuits. And eventually, I think we'll have Dr. Ira Phillips, who's a former Dean College of Education and Human Development. He's an educator, former president of JSU Faculty Senator, and newspaper columnist and community activist. So a great panel for our discussion tonight, and we're going to be talking for an hour and a half. This is a recorded program, so you can't call in for any of your comments or questions tonight. So you can just relax, get a good drink of tea or punch or eggnog in celebration of the upcoming year, and just be part of the conversation by quiet listening tonight. As the new year approaches, it seems like every year is dubbed a year like no other. In the last 12 months, we faced a renewed threat of nuclear war and debated whether to take a knee during the national anthem. From increased tensions with North Korea to a hurricane season unlike any other, to the bombshell allegations of sexual misconduct in Hollywood and beyond, we today will take a look back at the key moments of 2017. I'm extremely excited about the work of Women for Progress and what we were able to accomplish in Women for Progress, the organization. Of course, Women for Progress Radio, we've expanded the network by adding the youth edition to our program, which has been very, very exciting for us. We've added a new radio station on WJNT, the Working Woman Report, which is programming to illuminate the work of women throughout the state of Mississippi. And we have, since its launch in May of 2017, We have had a broad increase in our audience, and we've been able to interview and talk to a diverse group of women from all over the state of Mississippi, and really all over our state, because we've talked to women by phone about mental illness. We've talked to authors on the East Coast in New York. And so we're very, very excited about that program, and we're going to be continuing to expand the Women for Progress radio network, so stay tuned to our work. We've also engaged more women through our Lunch and Learn program, through networking, increasing conversation and action on the issues that impact our community. We've reached out to other organizations in collaboration on various projects, and we continue to support women in business and help expand opportunities for entrepreneurship for women. Our membership has been the highest growth in membership since 2010. We're very, very excited about the number of women who've joined our organization. And we're very excited about the young folk that have joined our organization. The group of diverse young entrepreneurs and millennials that have joined our organization has been very exciting, and they bring a different flavor, a different perspective, a different conversation to the table. So we need those young women. We need to continue to grow and make sure that we help improve and increase the number of women leaders within our state, within our city. So we're excited about that work. And of course, Kwanzaa 2017 was also another trailblazing event for us. We were the first organization to hold an event at the new historic Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. And it was a tremendous occasion. We had over 350 people that registered for that particular event. And it was very inclusive, and we just had a wonderful, wonderful time. So we're excited about the work of Women for Progress. One of the major projects for 2018 is going to be engaging more women in the political process. And we'll talk about that a little more as we go on to our program tonight. I'm going to start with some big topics, and I'm going to try to, I don't want to talk about the big name that is continually used, and that's Donald Trump. So I'm going to phrase this particular question and conversation a little differently by saying that President Obama and the First Lady left the White House this year. Donald Trump was sworn in as 45th President of the United States on January 20th, outlining his vision of a new national populism and reiterating the same America First mantra that delivered the White House to him during the 2016 election. In his first address as leader of the free world, Trump said his inauguration would signify a historic moment when, quote, the forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. So my question to our roundtable, starting off our conversation tonight, what has the impact of the Obama transition meant to America?
I'll start off.
Okay.
Chaos.
Okay.
From the very beginning and playing to the base of 45, and that's how I will address him instead of using the name. But it has been chaos from Charlottesville to the tweeting that's constant. But then some bright spots as well. When I look to Virginia in that election, when I look to New Jersey, and especially when I look to my home state of Alabama and the resounding voice that was heard there in opposition to those who, men and women who have been forgotten but will be forgotten no more. That mantra is not selling well across America based on that. But it has been a chaotic time. I was very pleased with the Congress not being able to overturn Obamacare. But it's been chaotic. And a lot of the chaos has been brought on by 45 with his constant tweeting, his constant attacks on our government agencies and entities, like the FBI, like the CIA. There is no bottom to 45.
And I think that's the most important thing is what you just stated is the impact to our government agencies and to that leadership. Because when I phrased that question the way I did because the impact of the Obama transition, I believe when Obama was there, there remained a dignity to the White House. There was a authority there. There was respect there. And I think that's one of the big losses that we had in 2017 internationally. That loss of respect, that loss of authority. And for us as citizens of the United States, I think that's crucial to our safety, crucial to our moral character, crucial to our society. What do you say, Ms. Brown?
Well, I certainly agree with Judge Russell, and I'm honored to join you distinguished women this evening on this panel. One thing that has really disturbed me even from his running for office, and I think we have to, well, I have to acknowledge that 45 told us exactly what he was going to do once he was elected.
Yes, he did.
So the things that he is doing, from my perspective, are things that he already said he was going to do, and yet he got elected. One reason is because millions of people stayed home and did not come out to vote. So we have to take some of that ownership, from my perspective, on our shoulders, that we felt as though Mrs. Clinton was going to be a shoe-in. So what's my vote going to count? One vote. And so we just kind of gave into, I guess, the media's the media telling us that, well, since she's going to win, why go and vote? Well, let me tell you, I know that every vote counts. In 1982, I ran for president of my union, a union which supervised 8 states and 13 cities. I won by 1 vote. I beat an incumbent by 1 vote. And so, as all of you know, I'm very, very passionate about getting to the polls to vote. Because if you don't vote, you have no voice. And so I believe that Mrs. Clinton would have gotten to the 270 much earlier than 45 had we come out and not stayed home, as I say, watching as the world turns.
Amen.
You're so right. And with that point, 45 won the nation with less than 100,000 votes.
Right.
Of all of the millions cast, he won with less than 100,000 votes.
Right.
Michigan, 10,000 votes.
Right. Just
Because
a
we
handful.
decided to stay home.
Because we decided to stay home. So, yes, he has been vile, no integrity, and as I said in a news, to one of the news media just prior to the museum opening, was that I was not sure if I was going to attend or not, but so much work had gone into the museum. But this is what I said to the news media. They carried it, Washington Post, New York Times. I said that I hope that when he comes into that museum and he sees the martyrs, the people who have fallen, who have died, who've gone to jail, who've been killed, when he sees the Medgar Evers Gallery, that he will clearly understand that that was not fake news. And I want to reiterate that tonight to those of you who are listening. That was not fake news. And so we have to not buy into what people are being fed as a norm. This is not a norm. And we must find a way to overturn some of this foolishness.
Let me piggyback on what you're saying, and going back to your question, your original question. I think to me what it really means and what it highlighted for me all this year, what I have been watching is a tale of 2 Americas. There's 2 different Americas. There's the America I live in, the America I grew up in, which marginalizes me as a woman, diminishes me as a black person. And there is the America that this man spoke to when he was running for office. I am not a part of that America. The part of America that I occupy is the part that believes in one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm in that part of America that believes that, but we also know at the same time that is not a reality. There's 2 Americas, and I told people during the campaign over and over again, you know, all of us had little names we would throw out to express our discontent with this person. And a friend of mine said to me, he's just an idiot. I said, no, he's not. He is definitely not an idiot. He's dangerous because this man is the idiot whisperer.
Yes.
Well,
He speaks to idiots. He speaks, and when I say idiots, I'm talking about people who refuse to think for themselves regardless of having information. So even right to the opening of the Civil Rights Museum in 2017, we still had a black valedictorian of the school and a white valedictorian of the school. We haven't gotten any closer. And the reason we still, I say we have that, because we have two buildings sitting side by side. And for the life of me, I don't know why I wasn't involved in the preparations, but I really wanted to know why it wasn't possible that we could have actually had one building that seriously had an entire dedicated space just to the civil rights story, because the civil rights story is so big. That's why it occupies its own building, because the one story is so big. But I just couldn't understand why we chose to do two separate buildings.
Well, now, it is one building.
Okay.
It
is.
it is one building.
With a,
breezeway.
yes, yeah.
Well, you walk in, but it's just a hallway.
Truly.
It's not really a
Exactly.
breezeway. There's one entryway.
Right. And I don't want to get off
Yeah.
our topic because we got a lot
Get
to
back.
hear.
Got a lot
But
to cover, but
give you
it's
an
not two
opportunity to
separate
explain.
buildings.
I just want to get back to what happened during the election. And being involved with the Democratic Party here locally and being a part of the Democratic Party Executive Committee for Hinds County, it's critical for us as a county, as a city, as a state, and as a country for Democrats to understand what happened and what we need to do as a party and as a people to redirect the narrative of what's going on with this country. Not just the narrative, but our quality of life and
Yes.
being a part of the America that we all aspire to create.
Yes.
And I certainly believe that what happened within the Republican Party, there's infighting, obviously. There's the right-wing type of folks, the Steve Bannon and the
That's
Donald
the
Trump.
alt-right.
The alt-right. And there's the established Republican Party. And you saw during the campaign where the comments that were made about 45 and how he'll never get into office, it would never happen. The polling came out. We saw the Democratic Party, the National Convention, and everyone was feeling great about where Hillary Clinton was, and we thought that we were about to move into the White House, and we all felt great about it. And then what happened between that time and the election day, you started to see the real sentiment of many of the folks who got up and went to the polls to vote. Those people who were polled, all of whom were not truthful as to what they were going to do. So when post-mortem, so to speak, was what happened when the polling was such that it was assured that Hillary Clinton will win this election, and we saw something totally different that happened. There is, you talk about the two Americas, the black experience and the white America. What we saw in Charlottesville was an example of what the fear factor is.
Yes.
And that is, young white America is not your mother's or your father's white America. And they don't aspire to have that kind of ism between the races. That's not how they grew up largely. So though some of them, I understand, there are some that they're perpetuating it.
Right.
But what you saw in Charlottesville, when the news reported it, the fights, many of them were white on white fights. I saw white people fighting other white people and saying not here.
Yeah.
So what I think largely is happening is that the fear factor of the white lash that we see happening, Obama came in from Mitch McConnell saying that we're just going to eradicate everything that was Barack Obama's legacy, turn that around. That could not have happened. Oh yeah, it happened twice. What happened? They just were just flabbergasted that America put Barack Obama back in office, and now trying to turn the tide on every good thing. But you know that when you talk to people that are in this country and you look at what the Obamacare did for us, not just black people, but by and large, most of the people that need health care, they don't want to see pre-existing conditions to be pulled back into this Obamacare where you cannot get insurance based on some pre-existing condition. There are things that they want, they have, and want to continue to have. But we have got to understand not only what happened that folks did not get to the polls and vote, but we've got to determine what we are and who we are as a party to say, this is the reason that you should vote for our party line. What are we about?
And that's a great point, and I'm going to address another question to you because I think this is, I was going to put this question further on in our conversation, but I think it's a perfect segue now when we talk about this particular topic and what we're going to do. And I want to talk about a little bit about what happened in Alabama, because I think that gives us a key and to where we need to go, and it's a wake-up call for us. And I'm going to give a quote too that I pulled off from someone who posted a perfect quote on this very, very topic. Of course, Democratic Doug Jones sailed to victory Tuesday in Alabama with the help of black voters, according to the exit polls. According to CNN exit polls, Jones defeated Roy Moore with the help of nearly unanimous support from black voters, with 96% of black voters supporting the Democratic candidate. On Twitter, the hashtag Black Women began trending early on that Wednesday as people noted that CNN exit polls showed 98% of black women voters supported Jones. And I want to very quickly read the quote from one response to this wonderful news that was all over the social media and over TV, as if this was some new phenomenon that black women were voting and putting their power out there, and was our first time getting to the polls and making a difference. This individual who has the name of House of Princess J says, hashtag black women have and always will be the faces of change, strong for the weak and the voices for the voiceless. Where y'all been at? We've been here. Now stop using us and hire, protect, elect, and support us. Hashtag Doug Jones.
Amen to that.
So I think that when we talk about what we need to do moving forward, but this type of energy that happened in Alabama, whether it's a phenomenon that has been in place all the time. I mean, when I go back and I look at some of the research, black women voters have been in the top over and over again in all the polls and the surveys and etc. So where do we go? When I say we, I'm talking about we as women. If maybe the thought process is that we are not understanding and don't have awareness of what that power is. How we're using our pocketbook. I'm going to let you start, Attorney Quinn.
Well, I would say this. When we talk about what's going on in Mississippi in particular, and even what's going on in the country, we just don't have the numbers to get some of the policies in place that are so critical to not just women but to families. We have a supermajority in the state of Mississippi in terms of the Republican Party. The way the gerrymandering is done, there's an attempt to take over the airport within the state of Mississippi, the legislature, and the way they were able to do that over the strenuous objection of the citizens of Jackson and Hinds County and the Hinds County Democratic delegation, and all who are friends of the city of Jackson. One comment that was made on the floor of the Senate was that when the comments were made in opposition to this particular bill, 2162, And the response was, let them talk. We have the votes. Okay, this is not a situation where something was going on with the airport that there was any malfeasance. The airport was being run well, but it's a situation where people saw an asset, $1 billion of economic impact to the state of Mississippi, and they wanted it and saw the opportunity to get it. And the other things in terms of what we need to do is to get with people who are like-minded to say that even if we're asking Republicans to not necessarily decide they're going to start and become Democrat, but at the very least, please put forward candidates that benefit not only your family but ours as well. Your success doesn't have to mean that it's detrimental to me and my family and my community. If we all agree that we should have equity in pay, then we should be able to agree on legislation to promote that. If we agree that we don't want to tolerate domestic violence, we can put policies and laws in place to rectify that situation. We ought to be able to get with whether they're Republican women or Republican men and put together some kind of policy as to these are the people that we're going to promote for public service.
And Attorney Quinn, I think what you're saying is a lack of strategy on that part when we talk about Democratic. And EJ, you've ran for office. You've worked a lot with getting supporting women in public service. What are your comments?
Well, and I also was Secretary of the Mississippi State Senate. Before that, I served as a member of Legislative Services where we draft the laws, working with the Senate. And what you propose is really a fallacy because we understand that, but when you look at white women, they don't support the same things we do in many instances. I just look at Alabama. Some overwhelming majority of them voted for Roy Moore, even though this is a man who had been accused of molestation of underage girls. The women still came to his defense and didn't believe the women.
Actually, about 70% of white women voted for.
Like I said, the overwhelming majority. They don't see things the same way we see things because they have always had that protector, if you will, in the white male. Black women have always had to fight, not only for ourselves and our families, but those black men as well, because those who don't look like us are always out, or have always been in our history out to ostracize and castrate the black male.
So how do we change that moving
That's the
forward,
point.
EJ? What is our strategy? What is our plan? How should we
have
start
to
that?
identify candidates, women, black women, who are willing to put themselves out there to run, and we have to support them. We have to help them to strategize, to put their campaigns together, to raise money, to work with them out there in the communities.
Do you have the
Because
numbers for
they're-
it though? That's the
Alabama has fewer numbers than we do here in Mississippi, and they ended up helping to elect a senator who was a statewide vote. Mississippi has the highest number of black voters in the country.
Well,
In
this
the country.
Let's just talk about that for 1 minute, because this is the discussion that we've been having within the ranks of the Hinds County Democratic Party, and we need to have further discussion on it. If you look at the votes in Alabama, and you see if you add the Republican votes with the write-in votes of Moore, that was a number that could have put Roy Moore in the winner's circle, so to speak.
There were
So the number-
22,000 write-in votes total.
Okay.
Doug Jones beat him by over 22,000 votes, and nobody in their right mind would think that Roy Moore would have gotten every write-in vote.
Well, the point of it though is this: it's because it was Roy Moore, an accused pedophile. What happens if the Republican Party run someone who is not a pedophile, but still a Republican, still not as much of an outlier as a Roy Moore, but someone who is more palatable to the Republican Party. That's the thing. And this is the point also. That race was too close for a Democrat to be running against an accused pedophile. So even though Doug Jones won, he should have won by a much larger margin.
But
you can only imagine what the situation would
see,
be.
right there, I'm sorry, right there, I think now here's where the common voice comes in. Because I'm sitting in the middle of a panel of truly distinguished women. But here's this street committee comment.
Okay.
White women, just like EJ was saying, always have a protector. So they're not thinking about what happens if that white man wins. Because that white man has already whispered all of the little catchphrases and the buzzwords that he needs to whisper in that campaign. Don't you worry, white woman. Your children are going to be protected, because my prime directive is to make sure that that black woman's children are not protected, that they are in the prison pipeline and all of that. The catchphrases they use, the buzzwords they use, and so forth, is what communicates to their base.
Sure.
And they would rather have a white pedophile that will protect their white male child or harass and abuse your black male child and just try to see if they can keep that pedophile over here than to vote for what should have been a more viable candidate. But here's the issue, going back to what Willie was saying and what Ms. Flonzi was saying. We're talking about taking candidates. We're talking about black female candidates. But even if we were to talk about just female candidates, period, we do need to take them as women and come together and support each other. But we've got to stop and have some conversations between women first.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
I've got to, as a black woman, not only speak at or talk to that white woman, I've got to converse with her long enough on a deep enough level that she finally understands that the life of my child is not as sacred to me as hers is to her, but that the life of my child is sacred.
Absolutely,
And the life
yes.
of her child is
It's
sacred.
sacred.
And once, as women, we can come together around what is sacred to us as women, because if women are not stable, the country is not stable.
Well, Renee, you just made the point greater than I was able to, but that's the point. Because if we don't start to bridge the divide between women, we will never have a sane person in office, because we just don't have the numbers. We're only what percentage of the country, not the state.
And I think
So
what
we
I'm
got to
hearing
do
is
that.
here, be back to that same word. What is our strategy? What and when Renee is talking about having that conversation, not only with white women, but even as we as black women having that
Absolutely.
conversation
With
together,
our-
because
yes.
that's the hump that we got to get
Yes.
over first.
Yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
hearing strategy, and I want to bring into the roundtable Miss Geraldine Bender, who's the newly elected president of the Jackson Federation of Teachers and the American Federation of Teachers. Welcome to the roundtable, Miss Bender.
Thank you. I'm state president for American Federation of Teachers, and I work with the local. And I'm listening to all of this, and I'm thinking, going back to the Hillary Clinton election, and I believe it was on one of our programs on radio, that there was an attorney on, a male attorney, who chose not to vote in that election. And I think a lot of what's happening is that we have arrived so that we start to listen to the rhetoric and adopt it as our own. And it was right after the Medgar Evers thingamajig, whatever was going on. And I'm going, how can you sit and publicly say that you're going to abstain for voting when Medgar, during that time, there was nobody we could vote for, but he gave his life just so we could vote. And I think that's the message that we have to get, because when you have anybody with a college degree, a high school degree, a sixth grade degree that sit and say, I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils. Therefore, I'm not going to vote. Then why did all of these people die?
Yes.
So that you could vote. And I think we have to push that out there so that we can put some kind of consciousness on them to say, okay.
And I want to bring
Yeah.
that conversation back to the word strategy.
Yes.
Because even what Ms. Bender is saying is, as part of that strategy,
Yes.
we got to educate folks on what has happened before. How we get to the point where we are, the struggles that we got to have that opportunity to vote. That's part of that strategy
Yes, it
we
has
talk
to
about.
be.
And it has to be, that strategy in that particular conversation has to be a strategy for today.
Yes.
Just talking about history and how grand it was does not get resonate with
the millennials.
with the
No,
millennials,
no.
Yeah.
even a lot
Not
with
just they,
those
with
of us
right.
there. We're all thinking in this social media age, even those of us who may be 50 and beyond. So that has to be part of that conversation. Miss Flunsey is jumping up and down. So
Can I say something? Can I say something though that I have found? Because I go into schools and stuff and try to talk to juniors and seniors who are getting ready to be able to vote. And one thing that I have found that will resonate with them is, if your vote is not important, why do people try to keep you from exercising your right to vote? And they go, I never thought about it like that. Your vote is power. Your vote is your voice, and they do want to silence that. If it wasn't important, they wouldn't worry about your vote. They wouldn't try to suppress your vote, and they can relate to that.
I have a question just to throw out here, because it really, and it goes back to what you're talking about with the strategy. I think we all too have to ask ourselves the question, really ask ourselves, and take a good hard look at what the answer to this question might possibly be from the other side, and not look at that answer so that we can attack it, but to try to really understand it. Because if we're not trying to understand them and give them some leeway, they're never going to understand us and give us a little leeway in the conversation, right? But what has struck me here is that you have to stop and ask yourself, what is it that a white woman in America could be so fearful of when it concerns my black people that she would prefer to vote for a pedophile who might rape her own daughter or son? There is a serious fear that would make you vote for someone that you believe or know is a person who would harm children, over voting for someone that might not beat me down because I'm black. You would rather vote for the person that would be anti-black but rape your child, instead of voting for the person that would work with the black community and be safe for your child. There's a lot of fear there.
I just wanted to just quickly respond to that. It wasn't so much for Roy Moore as it was for Donald Trump. It was his pressure that came to play in Alabama.
Again,
to go
though,
out.
that
Yeah.
fear that would even make me listen to this
But it
man
wasn't
and
about
go
fear.
vote for this.
But see, he took away the fear.
But see, I think what
Yeah.
happened, what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
what I think happens is, if you have the conversation with them, because I get into conversations with my white friends, and we get kind of deep, and some weeping and crying and gnashing of teeth goes on. There'd be a little weeping and crying going on.
I've been
But
defriended by a couple of
I have too. But when you get into the conversations with them, what I discover quite often is that they are not themselves aware of just how deeply rooted and deep-seated their own isms are, if you will. And when you start pecking away at them in those conversations and challenging their thoughts and ideas and positions on things, and showing them the fallacy of what they're saying, then they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. And they get upset, and they get, just out of control.
We're gonna take one more statement by Ms. Flunzy on this topic, and we're gonna move to our next topic.
Well, I wasn't jumping up and down because I wanted to speak. 'Cause I really enjoyed the conversation. You said 50 and over.
And you came in
That's all of us
under
in the
that at
room.
49. She came in just
I'm
under
the
that.
senior in the room.
Okay.
All y'all's mama names.
One comment I do have in terms of what that is, because I have, a few white friends as well, female in particular. And the interesting conversation that I had was the backlash that white women took regarding the election for Hillary Clinton and also for Roy Moore. And the comment being basically, if people think that they voted the way they did just because their husbands or significant others told them to, was demeaning
It
and
is.
not a way
It is.
to endear yourself to people to get on the same page.
Correct.
We have a common
But
agenda.
was it true?
And this is the thing for them. They will say that no, that was not true. You have to look at what we ask. What was your rationale for doing it? Basically, when these people are misogynists and people that are not respectful of women, what they're looking at more so maybe household versus individual. You talk about there's a man in the house protecting them. The other thing is, as much as many of us loved Hillary Clinton looking at the national election, there was still some opposition from the Bernie Sanders camp, and some of our people stay home because they don't want this legacy of the husband and then the wife, and then that to get somebody new. They weren't particularly that enthralled with Hillary Clinton. So there were some things in terms of that as well. But at the end of the day, I still believe that the discussion has to find some common ground, because as long as you're a minority in this country, I don't care how many of your folks go out and vote, you're not going to beat the majority race. So we can talk about how great we can be together, but we need some allies.
Yeah, and to add to the conversation as we close it out, this topic, we can't forget what Willie talked about, strategy. And there were three organizations in Alabama who were all led by black women who really, if you get down to the weeds of it, they really turned out the vote. There were three organizations, grassroots organizations, one called Black Pact, the other one called Black Voters Matter, and the other one called Woke Vote. Again, they were all led by black women who did things different. They weren't, when they talk about going into the churches, as we usually see politicians, elected officials show up around election time and everybody goes to everybody's church. They did it a little different. And they made the focus not about Doug Jones, and they didn't make the focus about Roy Moore. They made the focus about them, that this is how this impacts you. And one of the ladies that is with Woke Vote, she talked about they created face captains, and so when you talk about strategy, these women saw what wasn't working and added to that to be a benefit to it actually end up being a benefit to Doug Jones. They created face captains, what they call, inside the churches. They did have an aggressive social media campaign where they put people that looked like them, people that they knew, people from the neighborhood in these ads. And so they were really strategic and intentional about who they were trying to target. And we saw that with the 98% vote of black women for that race.
And I want to, we're going to come back to this topic because it's important, and because we spent some time on it in our last half hour, part of what we need to do for 2018, we're going to come back to that, and we want to speak to that a little more. But I want to move forward hit a few more topics. In early October, back-to-back bombshell reports in the New York Times and the New Yorker revealed that film mogul Harvey Weinstein allegedly lured women into hotel rooms and bars and sexually harassed or assaulted them in what some have described as an open secret known for years in Hollywood. Personal stories of being the victims of sexual harassment or assault, all using the hashtag #MeToo. Weinstein's downfall has seemingly emboldened others to come forward with allegations of sexual misconduct against prominent men. In recent months alone, at least 30 powerful men in entertainment, business, politics, and the news media have been publicly condemned for their alleged sexual misconduct, and many have lost their jobs as a result. The silence breakers of the Me Too movement, who gave a voice to sexual assault and harassment survivors, have since been named Time Magazine's 2017 Person of the Year. And I pose the floor by saying, I have not heard enough about the courageous Anita Hill,
Yes.
who was a Me Too before Me
Yes,
Too.
there you go.
When she had to stand alone, we have to
Yeah.
say
The whole
stand alone. So I was just blown away. And all of these women who came forward in this particular, they were also courageous. But overwhelmingly, I think the significant thing that really stood out for me is why have we not gone back and evaluated that particular conversation? So I'm just going to open the floor to that particular conversation. Ms. Bender?
With Anita Hill, the Republican Party members approached her to keep Clarence Thomas from being, getting his post in the Supreme Court. They came to her. She talked about the fact that it was this group of people that came to her and asked her to come forward to talk against Clarence Thomas. Hopefully would keep his nomination from going through, and then they left her out there by herself. So we had to think about, would she have come forward had they not come to her? And then when we think in terms of Bill Cosby, they say got all of this recent thing started. Would that have happened if he had not put out a bid to buy NBC network?
Let me wade in
So-
right there.
Oh,
'Cause-
but before I let you start, Renee, I'm going to have Miss Erica chime in on this topic because we have not heard her voice on this table today.
Well, what I want to talk about with the topic is the question that constantly happens, and I challenge a lot of women, Facebook-wise, about, well, why are they saying something now? And it's the same reason that the abuse happened, because you didn't have a voice. And I think now everyone feels that they have a voice. So I feel for Anita. I think that she's been appointed to a position or something to look over this now. Is that a consolation prize or something with the motion picture, with the motion picture industry? I guess she's validated now because so many people who were non-black women spoke up and said it, because this is what we're hearing mostly.
Yeah.
So that's my thing about it.
And
Can Renee?
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
And again, this is, as many of you know, an extraordinarily personal topic for me. So if I get wordy, just say stand down, I'll hush. But there are a number of factors here. You're right. Maybe Anita Hill would not have come forward had she not been asked by the Republican Party. So here she was, a woman, professional woman, working her way through a male-dominated field, being subjected to some nincompoop who has abandoned his own illustrious heritage, the Gullah Geechee Nation, Queen Quet. And maybe she thought they were going to give her some support.
She
Now,
did.
the problem here is, though, is that not only did she not get support from them, because they just wanted a bailiwick, right, to hit him over the head with. We're going right back to this conversation we were talking about women talking to each other. Because not only did she not receive support from them, which you didn't expect anyway, women of color attacked this woman as if she was doing something wrong by speaking her truth. And why did you wait so long? That is such a common statement. So let me speak to anybody in the listening audience who wants to know why she waited so long.
Lots of reasons.
My uncle began molesting me when I was 7. It took me until I was 9 to tell someone. There are other girls who still have not told, and that may have been 50 or 60 years ago for them. Women across this country, black, white, blue, and purple, are harassed by men because men are in authority. They are dominant. Generally, they are physically stronger. And then the women in our environment, fearful of having that negative attention turned on them, not only don't support you, they will turn around and harass you too. Well, why didn't you tell? Well, why did you go up to that hotel room? Why did you go out with that man? Well, why did you get in the car with that man? The question is not why did I? The question is why did not this grown man control himself? So I never ask a woman, why did you put yourself in this situation? Because I don't care what situation you put yourself in. The person who perpetrated the violence is the person who is responsible, period. So then, women getting into politics, it goes a step further. Simply, in my case, because some nitwit believed I was supporting a political candidate, which, by the way, I wasn't. I wasn't involved in that campaign, and if I had been, it wouldn't have mattered. This man went out on Facebook, brought up every horrible, traumatic thing that he could bring up about my life that he thought he knew. Now, the sad part about it was what he had at his disposal, besides a computer and a keyboard, was innuendo, rumor, and junk that had been put out in the streets by people gossiping about, well, what happened to Renee, or what's going on, well, what did happen, or what did happen back then. None of your business. If I wanted you to know, I would have told you. If you want to know, ask me. Don't ask other people about other folks' business. So he took all these little pieces and parts of crap, put them out on Facebook. He talked about me attempting to commit suicide and said that that was an attention grab. He said that I had claimed to be raped but had never reported the rape. Well, that was a big lie, so I introduced him to how to do an open records request. So women don't get involved and they don't speak up because this type of pressure, once you have said this has happened to me, everybody turns on you like you put yourself in. I had a grown man asking me after I got raped, well now, how were you dressed? I don't care if I was butt ass naked walking down the street. It matters not. A grown man should be able to control himself. And we have to start saying, no, we're going to ask the perpetrator why they did that. So we have women who don't want to get into politics, or good people, period, because it appears that in politics now, we will not only attack you if you're the candidate, but we will attack your supporters too. And that is to silence everyone's voice. I'm not a quiet person. You're not going to silence me. You're not, I mean, okay, you talked about me being raped. 50 million other women have too. You talked about me attempting to commit suicide. Let's open up the conversation about why mental health has such a stigma in the African American community.
And I want to touch base, I want to bring out what you stated about the political process as it
Yes.
relates to when we are asking women to run.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right. It's a big fear.
Nobody wants to get into
because
that,
we
yeah.
know that the business that will
Yeah.
be,
Talk about
let's
who you're
say it, be
sleeping
put out
with,
there
who you
on
ain't
us as
sleeping
women,
with.
it's going to
Exactly.
be very, very different if you were a male running. So whether it's about your dirty laundry or who you dated or whatever, these are
Exactly.
things
Who you
can
didn't date, who you
yes,
should've
yes, yes, how you treated that particular person or whatever.
And they won't
So-
even tell the truth. At least if they
No.
would tell
Exactly.
the truth, you feel better.
Exactly.
How you
EJ?
raise your
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
And
Well, go ahead.
And I see two things here with regard to the molestation issue. Number one, historically and traditionally, men have just had the power.
Mm-hmm.
Right, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent. Powerful men have just been in a position to deny and blame you.
That's right.
Number one. Number two, who's going to believe? Because I could tell a story or two that could destroy
Mm-hmm.
a couple of very powerful men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But then I have children. well, my mother and dad are dead now, but I'm saying, why put myself and them through that? Because I was able to handle myself.
Yeah.
Because I can shoot a real good Beretta, and I know a little kung fu.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was able to. But a lot of women live with
Yeah.
I should have, I could have. Now, back to Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas. And I can't say this on the air, so when we take a break, I'm going to give you all some information. I know them both. I worked with Clarence Thomas in Washington. I worked with Anita Hill in Washington. And I know some things that maybe you all may or may not know about that story that I will not tell on the air. I respect Anita, worked with her, but I'm just going to share some things off the air. Back to the two Americas. I'm listening very intently. Back to the two Americas you brought up. There are two. There will always be two. But we ought to be smart enough to be another Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer. There were two Americas when Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer took to the Credentials Committee in 1964 and shut America down, even though Lyndon Baines Johnson called a press conference at the time of her testimony. We're still talking about it 50 years later.
And we didn't have the numbers.
And we didn't have the numbers. So I'm saying, but we had a strategy. We had
That's
a
the word.
common
That's the
purpose.
word.
Yeah.
We had a strategy.
Back to what Willie
We
was
had
talking
a
about, that
common
strategy.
purpose. And one of our common purposes was that no matter what I have to endure, I'm willing to endure that because it's for the good of the whole, not for what I can get out of for me, mine.
But you brought
Okay.
up something very important. I don't want to skip past. I want to touch on what you just said. You talked about how that you yourself, and I know you have many stories, but you talked about a couple of people in particular that if you told your story, it could bring them down. And then you followed that immediately by talking about the fact that you had children, you had a family, and you had to think about that. So here's going back to what you were saying. The question is, Erica, people often ask why women don't tell. Women have more to consider than just what's going to happen to my individual self. You just said it. I've got my family to think of, the repercussions to my family, my children, my family's business.
And
May
she
suddenly,
endured.
that's right, and she endured.
Right.
But there's a lot of women that aren't that strong. And so why are so many people talking now? Because this one talked, that
Yes.
one talked.
Yes.
Okay, maybe it's
It's
safe. It's
safety
some
in
numbers.
numbers. Yes,
Maybe it's
safety in
safe
numbers.
now.
Because, because there is strength in numbers, and women won't be castigated because they tell a story or because they share something about. And then too, it's a thing of pride. What woman really wants to be just knocked down in a hotel room and raped?
Okay.
Because again, that has something to do with your psyche.
That's right, it does.
Let's just face it. That has something to do with how you feel about yourself.
Yes.
How you are not able to protect yourself
Correct.
from Bubba.
And you're already
Now, let me
feeling
tell
bad
you,
about it and
I
somebody
think a lot
asking
of
you. Yeah.
the Me Too movement has something to do with, once again, those two Americas.
Yeah.
Because it is now extremely important,
Even
and we
though a
should
black woman
all
started
be concerned, exactly, because white women are coming forward in an avalanche.
And that's that common, the allies that I spoke to earlier. Sometimes you need that. We can tell our story,
Yeah.
but it's always good to have others sharing theirs as well. And just quickly,
Yeah.
and because I know you want to move on, but the point that you were mentioning regarding why is it that women pile on we
each
don't
other.
have enough time for that discussion, but that
That's a
discussion
whole
needs to
show.
be had.
That's
a whole
Because
show.
whether you're
We
running for
come against
office
each other.
or when you hear things about women and you go to Facebook and start tearing
Well, I
women
asked-
And you
down.
assume that negative.
And you assume that negativity.
Well, I asked a question
Okay,
in an
but-
article, and the question was this, quite simply. And every woman and every man now needs to ask him or herself this: are you up to the challenge of being raped? Because being raped or molested is about more than the act of being
about-
sexually
it's about-
penetrated. It is about everything that happens to you in the 10 or 20 years after that one act. Are you really
That's
up
a
to
good
the challenge?
point. Teresa?
Yes.
Oh, well, we've had that conversation about the lack of mention of Anita Hill, and a lot of us know that, yes, she was approached to talk about to his character, and there was some thought that he was going to overturn the Roe versus Wade, I believe, decision because he was against pro-choice. And when I look at that documentary of Anita Hill, I saw someone who had no
Protection.
not just protection, but her speaking up was more about was she later found out what was right, what was it was the right thing to do. And although she did it at a time that wasn't as popular, because we look back at the early 90s, I don't know many women who were in positions that thought that, like we talked about the family, that I don't think she ever thought that it would grow to have been this big thing, and when it did, it's something that we're still talking about today. And now, as people, as you say, layer on, well, not layer on that way, but layer on, more and more people are speaking up. It adds more validity to what you're saying, and you know, it's a big topic, and I know we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, we might have to have a part 2 to this roundtable discussion. But I want to move on. Our producer has given me the flag that we're down to our last half hour, and goodness, we have not hit where we need to be. But I want to come back local a little bit. I think I feel an excitement within the city of Jackson. We have a new mayor, a new first lady, a new first family. And he has built a momentum of inclusion, and also when we talk about even these things that are happening around the country, when we hear stories that are happening in Birmingham, and then when we get together, I'm sensing among Women for Progress has had an opportunity this year to meet and have dialogue with a diverse group of powerful women. Whether they were homemakers or retirees or business owners. And what I'm feeling in part of that conversation is a momentum building, an empowerment building. Women are really feeling, I think, that we have the power to make a difference in our own lives, to solve our own problems, and we can do it together. So I want to start this conversation and open the floor is where, as we move forward to 2018, where do you all feel that we are as a city, where we are as a state? What should our focus be on 2018, and what our priorities should be for 2018? And I'm just going to open the floor for whoever wants to start on that. I know that's a big question, a wide open question.
Let me give you my spiel. Educating not only this generation, but the generation just under you all, 2 or 3 generations under me. Educating them to say to them just how important they are, the legacies that they will leave. You know, we're going to all leave a legacy of some kind, of some sort. And I brought these books with me, not because I'm a best-selling author. I thank God for that. But we have to tell our own stories. Yeah. And this is when I'm talking about education. We cannot allow other people to define who we are in our stories. You know, I'm called upon, it's hardly a week or a month that passes by that somebody from the Netherlands or from Germany or from Switzerland is not calling me about an interview, New York Times, Washington Post, and I just brought just a couple of news articles in my own book. But we have to write the story. The first thing that I tell people is, okay, now, if I do this story, let me tell you my conditions. I don't sign a waiver unless I write on the waiver, you have to give me a copy of what I said. Because you can take it misconstrued, because sometimes I have done stories, and when I see it again, that is not what I said, but you're going to skew it to fit your story. So if we write our own stories, and I tell people, if you're not going to tell it the way that I'm telling you, then I'm not the one. You go find somebody else. So I brought these books. You know, I've got the Light of Freedom. I have a library, just almost everybody's book. Let's tell our stories. Everybody around this table has a story.
That's right.
We're still talking about today Mrs. Rosa Parks and C. Dolores Tucker and Mrs. Hamer and Mrs. Gray. Why? Because they had a story to tell and they told it. We're sitting on so much information that the next generation, once we're gone, will need. They will need to know the stories of how we got over, how we made it through, how we didn't lose our minds when we were beaten and tear gassed and shot at, and lives threatened, lives of our children threatened. How was it that we still stood up? First of all, because we're black women. We're black women with strong black mothers and aunts and grandmothers who made a way out of no way, who had nothing, but they left us something. And so it's incumbent upon each one of us at this table, write your story so that people can see. I've got Bob Clark's book. He was the first black man to win an election in Mississippi in the Congress. 1967, that was a trio. 67 Clark, 68 Goodloe, Brown Goodloe, and 69 Charles Evans. We were known as the trio. Now, don't you think that when I was out here running for office in 1968, I was afraid, but I had so much stuff in me. I had that grandmother thing.
Okay.
I had that mama thing. And so all I'm saying is that, ladies, and then I'm through. I'm through. We have got to tell our own stories and not let other people tell it the way they want to tell it. And I'm done.
Ms. Kennedy, priorities for 2018.
Well, for me personally, would be learn more about finances. I went to a conference back in October, and there was a young lady who has she's been on several major networks. Her company is called My Fab Finance, and she just gives the basics. And we do take for granted that people know how to manage and budget and things like that. And I've tried it on my own, and I'm not the best. And so for me, it's about getting that in order. Another thing is being the best me, and that's more learning more, reading more, and doing more. And then as far as just on a community-wide thing or something I think that we as a people should be focusing on, we talked a little bit about the Alabama election, but, and I've had this conversation with a lot of my peers about how the black vote, how important the black vote is, how powerful the black vote is, especially black women. We have got to recognize that and hold people accountable. After we elect them, we have got to demand that we have positions in their administration and not just, answering the phone or being their administrative assistant, but taking that vote and that power and that knowledge that we have and letting us be in leadership positions and do what we do best, and that's make things happen.
Okay, EJ.
Well, I think one of the highest priorities for me is to do what I can to have an impact on midterm elections. From the local judicial races to the Senate race or races, because there's a lot of speculation that Senator Cochran may be stepping down early in 2018, which means that we will have 2 Senate seats. And I hadn't figured it out just yet, but hopefully we can find a candidate, a credible candidate, who can run for one of those seats, if not both of those. Because one thing's for sure, you cannot win if you do not run.
Right.
And the thought of Chris McDaniel being a U.S. Senator is worse than Roy Moore, I think, being a U.S. Senator in Alabama. So we all need to be concerned about that. It's important for us to have good judges, and most people don't really think about the judicial races, but I think you're going to see some of your incumbents perhaps retiring next year. There are going to be some open seats, and we need to be concerned about who gets in those. They determine who wins or loses, how much time someone gets if they are convicted of a crime. So, or whether they can go into alternative
Interpreting
sentencing
our
kinds of
policy
things.
and laws.
Exactly, but people almost always overlook the judicial races, and that's critical. And I believe we'll have a couple of Court of Appeals positions on the ballot next year. We'll have at least 1 Supreme Court, probably 2 on the ballot, your local circuit and chancery judges. I mean, it's very, very important that we energize folk and find some candidates who are credible candidates to run for these.
Right.
I think about the governor's race last time.
Oh.
And I mean, it was a farce. It really was. And also as part of this year, we need to be preparing for our statewide and our legislative races in 2019. Because the last time, I mean, the Democrat Party conceded races. They didn't field any candidates for the statewide races for the most part. And then when you look at some of our legislative seats, yeah, they've got a super majority, but there are a number of seats that Republicans hold that are in Democrat majority population. The demographic ought not to have a Republican representing that. And I think that can be a strategy. Identify those, try to find some candidates, and then put our support behind them. That's going to be my priority.
For me, going into 2018, I'm focused on a certain segment of women in our local population. Because even for me, I'm narrowing my focus, not my dream, but I'm narrowing the focus of this dream to women who are of a certain socioeconomic group. And by that I mean women who do not have college degrees, may only have a high school degree, working 1 or 2 full-time jobs, taking care of children, trying to keep up with homework and all of that. Why? That segment of the population is my focus because that is the segment of the population that is so overworked. Their days are so full that, frankly, they don't have time to keep themselves informed. And so that the things that I might have the luxury of reading about and understanding or listening to you all and getting information about, a lot of these women don't even have time between going to work and doing homework and cooking dinner and what to turn the television on, and all they find out when they do listen to some news is who got shot yesterday. One of my, or at least actually my only goal for 2018 and my only project will be interacting in communities where there is a prevalence of this population of women, of which I am a part of that population. And just talking. Do you understand what this means when your city council does this? Do you understand that your council person is literally sitting on a board of directors and cannot wave a magic wand? Do you understand that your mayor has to talk to your council and get things approved? I just want you to understand, and I know you don't always have time to research for yourself or figure it all out. You might not have time to go to lectures, but we can help people understand why it's important. And often we find ourselves talking to people in our own arenas. But if we don't get outside that arena, we don't build our base. So I want to get outside and get just to those women.
Okay, Erica?
Well, 2017 for me was about becoming informed. I feel that part of what happened in the election reminds me of being a child, being 18, asking my parents, who should I vote for? My feeling was always things are going to be all right. He's not going to win. It's not going to happen. So what happened from this election is I became more politically informed than I ever have. I know more than I knew when Obama was in office because I felt everything was going to be all right. No, it's not. That's faith without works. So this year, I took the time to get informed. The next year is about being empowered. Stop waiting on a savior. They're not coming. Here's the savior right here. So where can I empower myself? Where can I empower others? Where can I take the information I learned from 2017 and apply it to 2018 so this never happens again?
Got the job.
Great. Ms. Bender?
Well, I can't help but talk about education. That's who I am. And one of the things that, for the city of Jackson, just keeping Jackson moving ahead, we have to focus on the undereducation that has gone on for our youth here in the city of Jackson. We've got to turn that around. We have to show our students and our kids the power of a learned society. And they need to know that it's okay to be smart. It's okay to get a quality education and move on. I think about what you said, and I have a goddaughter whose son goes to Clausell. And she put herself through 2 years of college. And with my help, and because she is my goddaughter, she wanted to know if she could go on and get the 4 year. And she just graduated on December 8th. So reaching out to people, letting them know, you may have graduated 5 years ago, 7 years ago, you can still go back and elevate yourself. And I think for Jackson to move forward, we have to work on our education. We have to come out. Back in the day, when I go back in the day, my back in the day is talking about Coca-Cola scholars, National Merit finalists. Those things used to happen every year from every high school. That's not happening. How do we go back and make a resurgence of that kind of education?
Attorney Quinn.
2018 for me, my primary focus would be in the electoral process, and that's why I got involved with the Democratic Party. But in addition to that is economic development, because once we educate our children, our young people, we need to have some place for them to go and to have work. There is a tremendous opportunity for the city of Jackson through the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, the EBO program, that the city of Jackson has, and not just the city of Jackson, but also through the Department of Transportation and the Mississippi Department of Transportation. Being one of the attorneys that represents the airport board, I'm a lot more aware now of what the economic opportunities are for small disadvantaged businesses. So I certainly want to ensure that businesses understand what those opportunities are and make sure that our city officials, state, are accountable and are certainly complying with the laws that are on the books currently to help to grow the capacity of these businesses. I've had a mayor to mention to me, this was a mayor over in Rankin County, he just said, I just don't believe in minority set aside. And he felt that he had the justification. We just should have the most qualified person doing the job. Well, it goes back to the power and control and how you determine the most qualified. But the point of it is, until we grow the African American or the disadvantaged business community within the city, we're going to always be in a situation where the crime is at a level that is unacceptable. The students are not getting the help that they need because the funds are not there. Businesses start to leave. It's all interrelated. So that's where my primary focus will be.
What I'm hearing, and we started off talking about the word strategy, and it's been throughout our conversation today, and I think where I think we end up walking away from this particular conversation is a beginning. I asked each of you about what our focus should be in 2018. Renee, you talked about reaching those communities that has maybe a lack of education, who are overworked, who may not be part of tables like this where they're being informed. And then you said as an individual, that's going to be your focus. So I'm hearing two things. We are building a strategy here, and we're saying that each of us within that strategy, we have a role that will lead to our ultimate success. Erica talked about how she has informed herself in 2017, and her next move is to empower herself. And if she shares that conversation and that particular goal with every woman that she meets, wow, what a difference that makes. So across our table, we've each talked about how we can be part of that strategy. We talked about the importance is that strategy is not going to work unless we come together. So this has been an exciting conversation today, and I think we have not only had a real good conversation, and we've talked in depth, and we've hit some areas that we might not have had talked about before. I think we also have led to the discussion is solutions, and that's what we all want to happen in 2018. We want our steps, we want our conversation, we want our work to all lead to a new place, a new successful place, and put us somewhere we have not been before. And I think this conversation tonight is led for that. But I want to, with the last few minutes that we have left, I think we have 15 minutes, 10 minutes left in our conversation. Let's get a little personal, because we all sitting around the table, I think if we says we are mothers, we're business owners, some of us are grandmothers, and so we have some things that affect us on a personal level. In 2018, I would like for us to share with all those roles that we juggle every day, is to share your thoughts that you would like to share with other women out there that are listening, that will be listening to this program tomorrow, on information you think that might inspire them, or you might want to give a tip that they may be able to use in their own lives, or you just want to make a statement to them, or you want to give a verse to them, or you want to, this is an open floor. Let's keep it at about maybe 2 minutes each. I think that'll run our 10 minutes. And make it short and brief, and share that with others, because we know when we share with each other and we have a dialogue with each other, we empower each other. Erica?
I recently changed professions, and I had a little window of time to myself, and the biggest thing I learned is developing the relationships that you have in your home. I had gotten so consumed by what I was doing, of making a living for my children, that I wasn't giving them a life. And they have their mother back, and they have a friend now, and I wasn't listening. I was just in the motions of moving. My husband mentioned one time that he said, I think I missed the first 4 years of their lives because I was working. Well, I picked up the next 4, 5, 6, 7. Listen to your children. And you have to listen without being biased, because they're living a whole different life. They're living in a different world than we did. And they need you right now, because the outside noise is so much louder than it was when I was a child. The expectation, I wanted to satisfy my parents. They want to satisfy the world. And the competition for that. The thing is, if you train up a child in the way they should go, they can't depart from what you taught them. But you got to teach them something. You got to be there for them. And my mom used to say, I'm going to be your parent now, I can be your friend later, but you got to be a friend now too, because our children are different. So be there for your children.
Okay, wonderful.
I want to encourage women to step out and pursue those delayed dreams. I run into a lot of women who, well, again, writing and voting, who have written books of poetry just stacked up in a room someplace. And I just want to encourage you to publish your work. I was in Georgia a few years ago, and this lady, Catherine Meeks, Dr. Meeks, wrote about a lot of different women, just a one page. I mean, nothing ostentatious, just a one page about maybe 25 or 30 women and what they had done. She left this for us. And so those of you who have books of poetry, who have life lessons, step out. It doesn't take as much to publish a book as one may think, but you got to make a sacrifice. And so step out, and those dreams that you have, buried, take the cover off of them and step out. Black women, we are special, we're important, and we still have a relevant message to tell this and future generations. And don't forget to vote.
Ms. Quinn?
I would like to encourage women to run for public office. I hate to say in spite of all the things you've heard, but certainly being aware of the challenges that would be before you. Because we need you. We need for women to step out on faith. We need for women to support women to run for public office, stay rooted in the Word, in our Lord and Savior, and know that it will be all right.
All right.
Don't be afraid to lose. I've lost. I've lost a couple of times. But I would tell you, tell them, Teresa, it is worth the challenge, the fight to get out there and have your voice heard. Be counted. You know, I heard some of the craziest things when I was running. Well, she didn't go to enough PTA meetings. And I wonder how many people say that to men that ran for office, you know, and the critique. The critique. Yeah, she didn't speak to me, you know, for whatever the criticism or critique may be. But women have, I think, some things to add to the conversation, and the ability to be a consensus builder and to be a part. And the thing that I'm so grateful to our current mayor, Mayor Antar Lumumba, regarding is still the wherewithal, the ability to say, look, come and join us, and let's all put all hands on deck and do what we need to get this city moving forward. So he knows that a passion of mine is Farish Street also in economic development. So he's been gracious enough to allow me to work with the group to see what we can do to get that moving. But step out, please do it, and know that we need you. We need you to be a part of this process.
Ms. Bender.
Well, I have two friends here right now. I'll start with my lady. I worked in the private sector, and when my two children in the same grade at the same time told me when they were juniors that, Mom, whenever we are off on vacation, you always at work. Well, in the private sector, you don't get to go home like everybody else. So I quit my job and started teaching so that I could be home with them that last year and a half. But you can't imagine how it broke my heart. That as juniors in high school, Mom, when we're off on vacation, you're at work. So be there for your children. I'll have to amen that. And I'll go back to Miss Ryder. Back in the day, I was co-director for the Jackson State University Writing Project. And one of the participants in that project has published. And she keeps asking me, Ms. Bender, when are you going to publish?
Yes.
So I'm going to listen to you, and I say I am going to publish.
Wonderful.
I am going to go ahead and pull it out of the drawer, off the shelf, and publish.
Yes, please do.
And I say to parents, be there for your children.
Wonderful. Ms. Russell.
All right. Hey, I have a lot to say. Let's start each day with an attitude of gratitude.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
And don't let anybody steal your dreams.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you may fail when you run for something, but there's value in the learning process, and take something away from it that will help you down the road. You were talking about some are grandmothers and all of that. Well, I happen to be a great grandmother. And I sit here tonight extremely grateful because my great granddaughter and the granddaughter were in a car accident on the 9th of December. And they came out of it. It was very bad rate, but they came out of it pretty much okay. The great granddaughter has had 4 surgeries, but when I look at that vehicle, I am grateful.
Yes.
Because it could have been so much worse, so much worse. And I tell people, just be grateful for what you have. You may want other things, you may think you need other things, but when I was deployed for 24 months. You can get along with a lot less than this that we have. You know, you have food, you have shelter. Just be grateful.
Yes. Amen.
I love
Ms.
that.
Kennedy.
Well, I would just encourage women to be present. We all are moving, and I guess that kind of piggybacks a little bit off what Erica said earlier about being there for our kids more. But just being present and when we're out with people, I have a huge bad habit of being on my cell phone. Not all the time I'm on social
Oh,
media.
yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are.
I'm not. Sometimes I'm
Oh,
reading
yeah,
emails,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
reading articles, but it is a bad habit to be on my phone.
We are.
And you know, I was the only child at home for Christmas with my parents. And I usually do this all the time. I usually sit in there with my dad and watch TV, and you may have seen my Facebook posts, so you know what he was doing. It was aggravating me. But this time there was little distractions. So he got a chance to really pay me some attention, one-on-one attention. And he you know, he'd be talking, or he would flip the channel and I'd be on my phone, then I'd look at him, he'll look at me. But the point was, just be present. I'd be on my phone a lot. I've gone out with friend girls and we all have to put our phones up. Nobody can get their phone out, but that's when we go to the bathroom. But you know, so just being physically, mentally there, present in that time with that person, is really has a lot. I didn't realize how bad I was. And then even, you know, with my dad and my mom really helped me realize that as well how bad
That
how
is
bad
great.
my habit is. Yeah.
That's great, Teresa. I want to thank. We're going to give you. I'm sorry, Renee. We're
That's
going to
okay.
give you a quick
I
30
want-
seconds.
And that's all I need is 30 seconds. I want to encourage every woman in the sound of my voice and beyond to do exactly what I intend to do in 2018. Do not put your mouth on another woman.
Amen.
Do not share lies about women on social media. Do not sit in your coffee clutches and gossip about each other. Let's come together and help each other. If you know a woman is out there struggling, if she's doing the wrong thing, go to her and help her do right. If you know somebody's lying on her, stand up and say, you're wrong and I will not participate. If somebody's gossiping about who she's sleeping with, remove yourself from the conversation. Do not contribute to the problem. We can do better.
All right.
love
Okay,
that.
that's a great
That's
closing. And I want to say thank all of you all for being with us in this conversation. It's been great and awesome. And when we think about the person of the year, I want to give the person of the year to Miss Juanita Brown, our executive producer. Tonight is a perfect example because she's sitting over there behind closed doors or away from the table, and she's still there taking care of us. She's put this roundtable discussion together for us. She has guided our topics during 2017. It's just been awesome to have her on the leadership of Women for Progress Radio. She's been fantastic. And I want to say to all the members out there that are listening to Women for Progress, it has been awesome getting to know you. We got some wonderful things that we're going to be doing in 2018. So we want to say to the audience out there to listen, stay tuned. And if you want to be part of the conversation, go to our website at womenforprogress.net. Find out about all the great things that our organization is doing. And we want you to be part of that conversation and part of that work. So please reach out to us. This has been wonderful. We want to say Happy New Year, and next time we'll be talking to you will be in the new year. So thank you so much. This has been Women for Progress Radio. Thank you.